You're cosplaying as a tough guy while you bootleg for six grown-ass men who jumped on a nurse and shot him dead. This is not the tough position.
Before we jump in, tell me where you're tuning in from. And remember to like and subscribe. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming. This is the exact moment the polite facade finally collapses. After nearly 45 minutes of being gaslit, talked over, and told to ignore clear video evidence, the patience runs out. Brian Tyler Cohen and Tim Miller stop playing along, and what follows is one of the most satisfying pushbacks of the year. At this point, it's no longer about tone or party loyalty, it's about reality. When viewers are asked to deny what they just watched with their own eyes, something has to snap.
Tim Miller, it seems to me it's been a very significant 48 hours, actually, for Donald Trump, for his administration, for the wider public, and for this issue of trust and being able to believe what we see with our own eyes. Because if you listen to what these administration officials were saying in the immediate aftermath of this killing, then this guy, Alex Pretty, was about to launch a massacre of law enforcement officers, when we could all see from the various clips that were coming out that simply wasn't true. He was defending a woman protester who'd been thrown on the floor. He was then thrown on the floor himself. Yes, he had a weapon on him, but at no stage did he brandish that weapon or represent any threat to the 8 ICE officers that engulfed him. And in fact, they took away his gun and then they killed him. So given that we could all see that, I think what's happened here, which has been really pretty unprecedented and quite fascinating to watch, is that Donald Trump has realized this has crossed a line many people may not have thought Donald Trump was aware of or cared about. And that line being, if you try and tell people that what they've just seen with their own eyes is not true, they're not going to buy it. Trust in you is going to erode, and your polling numbers are going to get slayed, and ultimately it will cost you at the ballot box. What's your reading of it?
Well, I hope you're right, Piers. I hope that Donald Trump changes course. I think we've seen some very minor evidence of that, replacing Greg Bovino with Tom Homan. For me, I would have preferred that all of the ICE and CBP agents be removed from Minneapolis immediately and then taken off the streets and brought back to D.C. or to the border where they're supposed to be. Minneapolis is famously 300 miles from a border. And, then they could reassess what a program would look like where they actually went after the worst of the worst rather than menacing American citizens and menacing people who are here legally. And I do agree with you that the American people overwhelmingly do not want and do not support a government that murders its own citizens in the street, that unloads a clip and shoots them 10 times, fires 6 bullets into their dead body on the ground, and then lies about them and smears them after they're dead. I think that the vast majority of Americans don't want that. You'll probably be able to find a couple of shills to come on and defend that on this show, but I think the vast majority of Americans say, no, we do not want murderous mass thugs anonymously killing our fellow Americans. And so I do think...
Well, it's because of mindless people like the gentleman that just finished speaking is the reason why people have this perception that Donald Trump is somehow doing something wrong. They deported 600,000 people. They've deported people who have committed murder, rape, all kinds of dangerous and felonious crimes. Also, they're deployed in all 50 states. Why is Minnesota the only state that's having issues? And then to get on TV and say that a guy is observing the First Amendment and Second Amendment while he's at a protest assaulting ICE agents, Border Patrol agents. He committed an assault, a felonious assault against the ICE agent. That's how he got into a physical altercation while carrying a firearm without notifying them.
What was the assault? When
the Border Patrol pushed the lady, he went hands on. That is a felony. You cannot do that.
He didn't assault anyone. But Brandon, here's the problem.
Is that not a felony crime?
When you say what you witnessed was an assault,
to physically assault.
Well, Brandon, when you say hang on, let me finish.
Piers,
when you say what you witnessed was when you say what you witnessed was an assault by Alex Pretty on ICE officers, That is not what I witnessed.
Piers, do you because you don't live in America, you've never done law enforcement, you don't understand the law. And with all due respect,
I've got a home in America. I've lived in America on and off for 20 years.
But I'm saying you are not vested in American law enforcement. When you grab somebody like Pretty did with an ICE agent, that is an assault, subject to an arrest. They had every right to take him down to the ground.
You just heard Brandon Tatum argue that the police had every right to take him down. Now, for the next 30 minutes of the show, the conversation goes in circles. They argue about Jimmy Kimmel crying, they argue about Obama's deportation numbers, and they debate a syringe attack on Ilhan Omar. It is a masterclass in deflection designed to make you forget the body on the ground. So, I'm going to fast forward us to the moment where that deflection fails. Tim Miller brings the conversation back to the reality of the abuse, and the dam finally breaks. Watch what happens when the back the blue rhetoric collides with reality.
What ICE is doing in Minneapolis is far beyond that remit. They are going after people that have asylum claims that have not been adjudicated. They're going after protesters. They're going after American citizens. They've jailed American citizens. They're going into neighborhoods. They're bullying people. They're pushing people, and they're murdering people. So if your issue is let's deal with Hennepin County prisons and figure out how to work better with them, then you don't need to murder American citizens to achieve that goal. And so we can agree on that. I wish you could agree that the American citizens should be shot dead.
Let me bring in Brandon.
More issues.
Let me bring in Brandon because I want to bring in just an update from Polymarket about Kristi Noem. It's quite interesting. We're following the prediction markets on this subject of who will be the first to leave Trump's cabinet. Almost uniquely, he's a year in and hasn't fired anyone from his cabinet yet. Polymarket has a $1.5 million market open, a lot of activity. As we speak, Kristi Noem is at 39% to be that first member of Trump's cabinet to be fired. She was just at 13% before the two deaths in Minneapolis. I mean, Brandon, do you think she's on the way out? Is she going to be the first casualty of Trump's cabinet?
I don't know. I think Trump is very loyal to the people that are in his cabinet right now. That's why he hasn't fired anybody so far. But I do think that she's becoming incredibly unpopular on the Republican side. Now, I don't necessarily agree or disagree with it. I don't pay attention to what she's saying. I don't care unless people are getting arrested and they're doing their job. But I do believe if she's not doing what she's supposed to be doing, if she's doing things illegitimately and it's not working on behalf of the country, get her sorry self out of there. And I believe that with anybody that's in the cabinet. I don't owe no loyalty to none of y'all. If you don't do your job, you need to get fired. And so if there's a fair evaluation of Kristi Noem and what she's doing and not doing, and if she's not doing what's right for the American people and she's committing fraudulent behavior, fire her. I think we all understand it. Can I give you the Border Patrol response real quick? Law enforcement and Border Patrol connection, because I worked in law enforcement in Tucson, which is a border state, and we work well with Border Patrol and ICE. And there's a big difference when you arrest somebody and they are illegally in this country. Now, local law enforcement do not have jurisdiction to arrest them for their federal crimes, but we do take them to the jail and we put them on what we call an ICE hold. Therefore, they cannot leave the jail facility even when they're done serving for their city crime or their state crime. The ICE agents will come and verify them and take them. That keeps the community way safer because ICE does not have to go into the community. When you force ICE to go into the community and then you have idiots harassing them, doxing them, throwing stuff at them, blockading their vehicles, you create an unduly risk. This is why ICE is patrolled, or even Border Patrol in their assistance with ICE around the entire country, and you don't see people getting shot, and hardly anywhere else. You would say 99.9% of the shootings
Zero
are
is
in
the
Minnesota.
goal.
What?
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
You do see people getting harassed in other places, actually, not just Minnesota. Minnesota's just the only place they've murdered anyone so far. But they've harassed people. They jailed citizens in California. They shot people in Chicago.
Give me the murder numbers. Give me the people who have been murdered by ICE, and then you tell me where they were murdered
this year. There have been 2 people murdered by ICE in Minneapolis so far. And then
one city.
Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And then they shot a guy in Chicago, a gal in Chicago.
Patrol agent. No, Renee hit an ICE agent with her car. She got shot. This guy came and confronted and physically assaulted and had physical
I'm
contact
sorry.
with a firearm.
I can't do any more of this
shot.
apology of
You don't
fellow
have to do
killers.
anything.
You can
let's
do
put some
whatever you
money
want, man,
Let's do
but
a
do not
poly market.
smear dead people.
If this guy goes to jail for shooting Pretty, let's
It's
do a poly
shameful.
market.
What you're doing is shameful. You should be ashamed
you
of
are
yourself.
wussy. You don't understand the law. Don't get mad at me.
I actually think it's.
I'm not mad. You're just. You should repent.
You don't understand
the law. You should find the Lord.
I think what Brandon is doing. I think what Brandon is doing is actually. I think what Brandon is doing is actually pretty instructive, because the reality is that everybody saw the video. Like 85% of Americans saw this video.
It doesn't matter.
More Americans saw this video. Brandon,
so what
Brandon,
you're seeing
just
is
chill out
not
for a
according to what
just
they're going to be judged by.
Control yourself. Brendan, try to control yourself.
No,
for like 2 seconds,
how about
okay?
you listen?
Try to control yourself.
Know what you're talking about.
Just try like 2 seconds to not talk.
Give me the law. Give me the law that he's going to be prosecuted under.
Brandon, 2 seconds, man.
Give me the law he's going to be prosecuted
under. This isn't a good testament for how law enforcement officials are able to control themselves. 2 seconds without talking.
It's not a good testament how
the reality is the vast majority of Americans,
like you don't know the law.
Brandon, just shut up for like 2 seconds.
Where's the law?
The vast majority of Americans saw this video. We know what we saw with our own eyes. Even conservatives, even independents know that what ICE was doing was completely unjustified. That he was holding his cell phone and was bombarded by 6 grown-ass men who shot him dead. And the fact that you're standing up here, Brandon, just shut the fuck up for 2 seconds. The fact that you can sit up here and claim
you talking tough ain't gonna work with me, buddy. Give me the law.
What are you going to do? Shoot him 10 times? Shoot him in the back of the head?
This whole
what are you
time, you're cosplaying as a tough guy while you bootleg for 6 grown-ass men who jumped on a nurse and shot him dead. This is not the tough position. You are defending... Being a bootlicker is not a tough position, my dude. Being a bootlicker for a bunch of grown-ass men who killed a nurse who was helping a woman is not the tough position that you think it is.
Gentlemen,
where is he going to be charged with?
Can I just say, Gentlemen, I had hip surgery a week ago. And can I just say it flared up at the start of this debate. It's carried on flaring ever since. And the only thing I can put it down to is that you lot have shouted at each other now for 45 minutes without drawing breath. And I owe it to my new hip to call an end to proceedings. But thank you all very much.
Thanks. Brandon Tatum relied on volume instead of substance. Yelling, posturing, repeatedly leaning on his past role in law enforcement as if authority alone should end the conversation. The goal wasn't persuasion, it was intimidation. But notice what happened the moment Tim Miller actually named the behavior. When he called it out, when he stripped away the costume and labeled it for what it was, the toughness vanished almost instantly. The shouting didn't escalate, it collapsed. And that's the tell. Because when the performance stops working, there's nothing underneath it. That's when the real truth comes into focus. This aggressive defense of authority isn't about strength or confidence. It's about fear. Fear of accountability. Fear of a world where a badge doesn't function as a shield from consequences. Fear of being judged by the same standard as everyone else, rather than placed above scrutiny. And that's why this moment matters. It exposes the gap between the image being projected and the reality behind it. So now the question turns to you. Was Brian Tyler Cohen right to shut the performance down forcefully, or did that moment cross a line? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you found this breakdown useful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It genuinely helps the channel. Thanks for watching.